Our first session today is a panel on technology resiliency in urban environments, whether helping a growing city to become more resilient through technology or building the knowledge and resources required for technology resiliency in developing nations. We have an amazing panel of speakers for you today, and I will hand this session over to our expert moderator, VP of Marketing at Kigen, and Trustee at Jangala UK, B. Hayes-Thakore. Welcome.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for that introduction, Alex, and hello. Welcome to today's session. After a fantastic keynote from Thomas around some of the most innovative projects and implementations of technology, I have a very exceptional collective of experts to drive an open conversation on technology resiliency. And we will explore in today's session technology resiliency in two key aspects. One is building resiliency with technology for growing urban environments, a growing city or cities that are constantly evolving. And the second one being resources for technology longevity in developing nations. So by way of introduction, I'm a technologist like many of you and have a deep interest in how technological tools can be made available and made widely accessible for innovation. And this innovation can take shape and effect in many ways. I'm really pleased to reconnect with the Avnet and Hackster families as my journey included having launched the Raspberry Pi as part of the Element 14 and Premier Farnell group. Since then, I've had the chance to work on IoT for over 10 years, working with businesses of all dimensions and industries, learning about their problems and understanding where we need to do more work to support the scale up of IoT and the value it can derive for communities that we serve. I'm currently VP of Marketing at Kigen, a global security company that pioneered the integrated SIM, and we work with many of the companies you will hear from today in the semiconductor space. I'm also very proud to serve as trustee of a UK charity, Jangala, that's bringing affordable internet to people in crisis, as well as helping communities all around the world bridge the digital divide. I am humbled to be in the company of my panelists today. And so without further ado, I would like you to meet my panelists, starting with Renuka Thakore, please.
Hello, everyone. Pleased to be here. So I'm Dr. Renuka Thakore, and I'm a founder of Global Sustainable Futures Progress Through Partnership Network. I'm also a lecturer at University of Central Lancashire, UK, and I'm a director for the Center of Social Legal Studies. I also work as I attend plenty of UN Technology Executive Committee for climate technology and networking. And I'm a steering committee member for Future Earth, Sustainable Consumption and Production Network, and also for COAST, that is working for ocean resilience. Recently, I have, with this GSFN network, I am proud to say that I have 6,000 coordinators around the world, especially like in 165 countries. And we do capacity development program for climate change within and sustainability within the framework of SDGs. So I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you and welcome. Violet Sue.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. This is Violet. I work at SysStudio, a tech company focused on AI and IoT. What we provide is from sensors to networking to edge computing devices and cooperating with our partners in providing solutions for digital transformations. My role is the business development manager for Europe, and I talk to different partners from developers to community builders, system integrators, distributors, and many other roles in academia as well, to foster partnership that we can spread the technology and also build solutions together to serve the society and industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I go over to Andrew Lamb?
Thanks, Bea, and delighted to be on the panel. Thanks to Hackster for this excellent Impact Summit. It's a nice idea to bring the community together like this, such a productive community that does a lot of open source work, which is quite dear to my heart. I am the chair of the Internet of Production Alliance, and what we're interested in is finding ways to decentralize and distribute manufacturing across networks. And so it's quite similar to some of the work. I work quite closely with the Fab Lab movement and the Fab City Foundation. We have joint projects, some of what Thomas Diaz has said. But we are also looking at sort of data standards, ways to share information around documentation, around people and skills, around the geographic location of machines, and around distributing contracts. And so it's about trying to do for manufacturing what the internet has done for content. Thomas said in his talk, anyone can create content now. We'd like to see people, we'd like it to make it easier for people to create than to consume. And people who create are often happier than people who consume. And we want to complement the paradigm of mass production that we've had since the Industrial Revolution with production by the masses. And we think that will help make our world more resilient. Thanks, Bea.
Fantastic, thank you. And Kevin Schmidt.
Well, thank you very much, and I also want to echo Andrew and thanking the Hackster team for the invitation and also their excellent Impact Summit. And welcome everyone to day 2 of the Impact Summit. So my name is Kevin, and I am Urban Innovations, Technology and Digitalization Specialist for the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP. And actually, I'm working for UNDP's Global Center for Technology, Innovation and Sustainable Development, which is based in Singapore. The center is a collaboration between UNDP and the government of Singapore to leverage the exciting ecosystem here in the country in terms of digitalization, innovation, and technology, and try to see how we can learn from the context here in Singapore, but also in other parts of the world, and how we can share good experiences and knowledge across our 170 countries in which we have UNDP offices. Of course, working for UNDP, my particular interest is how technology and the use of technology can help us to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and actually how we can harness the benefits and also address maybe risks and potential negative impacts which technology and digitalization can have. And particularly, one of my main concerns or main focuses is how to make sure that everyone can benefit from technology. So how to create inclusive and sustainable ways to engage citizens and communities across the planet.
Fantastic. So welcome, panelists. As you can tell, everyone who's as audience here, we have an incredible spread of expertise here. So if you are interested in asking the panelists a question, please do use the Q&A function that's in the chat box. I will keep an eye and try and bring those questions over into our conversation. So without further ado, I will kick off our conversation with a few questions that I'm interested in learning from our experts with. And with that, I'd like to go and just open this topic of technology resiliency. What are the different dimensions we should be considering around technology resiliency, and particularly in your work, how does that manifest? So if I can open that up to all my panelists for other questions, I will particularly be interested in directing it to one or two of you, but this is something I know all of you are very passionate about. So who would like to go first?
Well, Renuka, yeah, maybe you should go ahead, given your work on resiliency. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I think we might be resonating each other, especially what you introduced, initially. I think for technology resilience, people are at the center of technology resilience. And we must make sure that the technology is for the people and is simple, or maybe helpful for them to use for their own resilience. And I think that is where I will have, we can only build resilience if the technology is accepted by the people and apply to achieve our goals that people's aspirations are for current and the future world they are desirable, like for them. So I will stop here with small introduction, and I will allow people to expand on that. Thank you.
Well, yes, I was going to say the same thing. I like the idea of people-sized technology, and what's important to me about that is that people should have agency over technology, and that technology should not have agency over us. And there are times when, I mean, even technology as simple as automatic doors seem to have more power over me. They don't open fast enough or something than me being able to have power over them. And don't get me started on my laptop. So it's about agency over technology, and the way we can make that happen is about appropriateness. My background's in international development, so I've worked a lot on the concepts of appropriate technology and openness and transparency. I'm a big fan of good documentation, you know, and it's quite hard to get a lot of the time. So well done to Hackster for its work on the platform. And technology should be repairable and circular. I mean, I hope this doesn't just sound like buzzwords at the moment. I know this is, we're talking about resiliency, which is on our minds because we are all having to ask questions about what kind of future we're facing. But honestly, I think it is about agency over technology, and there's different ways we can make that happen.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Violet, Kevin, do you want to come in? So we've talked about, obviously, technology that needs to be contextual to where it's applied to. It needs to work for the communities that these solutions apply to. It needs to be repairable, circular, needs to have this kind of, I love the idea of agency over technology. Anything you'd like to kind of build on?
I would like to add a little bit from my experience at Seed, because we are a company focusing on IoT hardware, and we noticed that, especially like with consumer products, they want you to replace it very frequently, buy new things. And then for us, we really have this concept of making it last longer or cover wider. So when we design the products, we want them to be like low power consumption, so that you can use it for a longer time, or it will be very robust. You can use it in the field for a few years, and then no matter it's storm or very high temperature or low temperature, you can still use it. And also it should be scalable, not like you build it, verify it at this stage, and then next up, when we actually want to use it in the field, you need to start over. So like scalability. So, and the next thing is about replicable. So we don't want everyone to reinvent the wheels. So that I think, again, I resonate with what Andrew mentioned with Hackster. A lot of people share the projects there, and then it can be inspiration for people to build on this excellent project, so we can get better together. So my keywords here is like robust and durable and scalable, as well as replicable for the resiliency of the technology.
Absolutely. When we look at technologies like IoT, scale is one of the biggest challenges and the biggest opportunity within it, to actually make it accessible, to make it energy efficient and reach. Repeatability is really important, because that ultimately does bring down some of that total cost of ownership. Kevin, any thoughts from yourselves?
I mean, most of it has already been mentioned. I mean, especially I think technology, in order to be resilient, needs to be inclusive and accessible to everyone. And I think an important part is also understanding what the technology means. I mean, there's a risk that we focus too much on technology as a solution, but I think we should be driven more by the outcome and just use technology as a tool to actually make life better for citizens. And I think what we need to keep in mind is there's an increasing gap between a digital divide among populations within countries, but also across societies. And I think there it is important that we have a look on how, as mentioned before, how solutions can be scaled up, replicated. I mean, we've seen it in many countries. I mean, digital transformation or the use of technology. I mean, yes, every country is very individual. Contexts are very different. Cities might be very different, but very often there are hundreds of different similar solutions, and every city, every country invests a lot of funding, a lot of energy in doing the same thing which has been done before. So of course, I mean, we always advocate for open source, open standards, digital public goods, which can be replicated and actually help to make societies more resilient. But I think also maybe another aspect of resilience, maybe we should talk a little bit about or should take into account is actually the resilience of the solution itself. So I think there we need to see and talk about aspects of reducing our dependency on technology and maybe sometimes create or think about alternatives also to strengthen the resilience of communities. And here I'm thinking especially about external shocks or times of crisis, where if, for example, everything is reliant on electricity and suddenly there is no electricity, what are we doing? So I think we also need to think, especially in certain contexts around the world, we might need to think about how maybe different types of technology can be complementary and actually help each other in case one is failing compared to the other. And I think a combination of those could help us to increase the resilience of communities and then of the technology itself.
Well, that's a fantastic segue into the next thing I want to cover. So, you know, our topic today is technology, resiliency, and urban environments. And you just brought into context some of the technologies that kind of be shared between urban areas, both in kind of steady state as well as kind of the sort of crisis mode. Sometimes, you know, the crisis can manifest themselves in a variety of forms, whether that's power breakdowns or actually crisis of unfortunate events such as effects of climate change or conflict. And I think part of this is technology can be applied to multiple of these kind of contexts in which it can be helpful. What are some of the most impactful technology tools and areas that are essential for robust and resilient urban environments? And maybe I can, you know, given what you've just shared, I can maybe take the question directed to Andrew first, because obviously you work in this area a lot.
Yeah, for the last 10 years, I've been working in disaster relief, and you know, it's how I became chair of the Internet of Production Alliance. I was working for an NGO called Field Ready that was manufacturing aid supplies in disaster zones. I think in terms of areas that are essential for new solutions, to answer that part of the question, for me, it's about distributed systems. And I think if you can have distributed systems that support local response and recovery and local resilience, then you know, it's you can help people to realize their own recovery and then not be so dependent on, say, shipments of outside aid that need to come in. This is particularly true of urban environments. Cities have enormous capabilities. A lot of them are private. They are not surfaced. They are, you know, the machines that we need, the tools that we need, the supplies that we need, the materials we need are hidden away in the fabric of the city. And so surfacing those is a big part of what we're trying to do at the Internet of Production, trying to create a map of machines and people and skills, you know, the capabilities that we have in a city. And so a distributed response becomes more possible, but then that distribution should extend beyond any one city. Because, you know, as we've seen recently with, say, the earthquake, the terrible flood that happened in Algeria, and the earthquakes in Morocco and so on, you know, towns are being swept away, that, you know, we need to think about resilience more broadly. In fact, B, you mentioned scale in your previous comment. And the Industrial Revolution and mass production, the paradigm is you make things cheaper by making more of them, by scaling up. And I think we're coming to the tools part of your question. We're at an age now where we can think of scale in terms of massive numbers of small distributed technologies. So I think of massive small technologies that can scale out across a network rather than scaling up and having linear supply chains delivering goods to markets. The tech tools that are enabling that at the moment, and I'm not just sucking up to our hosts here, are platforms like Hackster. When I was working in disaster relief, I would use online platforms to discover the kind of technologies that Violet's company makes, the kind of technologies that come out of the UNDP Innovation Accelerator labs around the world. So that, because they're documented, they're online. And the thing is, if the designs are ready to go, we're not reinventing the wheel, as Violet said. It means you can spend more time responding and recovering and less time designing and inventing. And that's, in a crisis situation, that's really important.
Absolutely. I mean, time is extremely, time is the most scarce resource anyone working in disaster relief has. And I think disaster response has. And I think some of these lessons that we do learn from disaster time responses can actually be applied to say, well, how do we create the sort of framework in which innovation can thrive? And I think, again, at the risk of really singing the praises, but platforms like Hackster do provide that sort of forum, that repository of tools that can be easily applied. And I love that idea that actually there might be distributed natures of massively small but numerous, right, making up in terms of a number, low-tech technology solutions, high-tech technology solutions, and we might need to actually design with the best kind of possible path and combination of those. Violet, I know you are also very involved in some of the programs that some of the sandboxes and proof of concepts you've driven. We will talk about some of those examples in a short while, but what are some of the technology tools and areas that you feel are most impactful for urban environments?
And thank you very much. I think from my side, what I observe are two main things. One is about is the LoRa and LoRaWAN technology, which really resonates with what Andrew mentioned about distributed like infrastructure, because like for LoRa is a kind of connectivity technology. And then we discussed a little bit when we were in Bhutan about how we might be able to use LoRaWAN tracker to track the goods, like the water or food that we are distributing to the areas that are needing aids. But then it will be difficult for us to literally set up a base station for cellular. And then even if the telecoms are willing to do that, the threshold is higher, and then it might take a longer time to set up a base station to get the data by cellular. But with LoRaWAN, it can be like literally set up in a few minutes, and then it's lower cost. So for this, I think the resilience of this technology is that it's lower cost, is a lower threshold for anyone to set up, and then we might need maybe a few hundred of them, each of them like $90 to cover the whole city or the whole area. But then if you might need a dozen of like a traditional base stations, but it might take months to set it up. So I think for this like LoRaWAN technology is really one example of how like this kind of technology can enable us to be more resilient in building the infrastructure to get the data and to provide timely response and support. And another thing is about like edge AI. Like it used to be like the supercomputers in a huge room that you can do this kind of AI tasks. Now with this maybe little box that you can put it in an intersection, and then you can monitor the traffic or like crowd, so that we might be able to use the AI model built in and iterate to optimize the AI model so that we can see, oh, this is something abnormal in the traffic or maybe some accidents. And then with this, we can provide a timely intervention or support. So these are two trends that I noticed, and I think it is really touching my heart about how technology can really help us in our daily life as well as in the like environmental sensing as well, like different corners of life to make it better and more resilient.
Fantastic. Absolutely. I think that that's a really, really great example around kind of activating, what affordable technologies and quick deployment of technology can do. One of my examples I think I'm quite passionate about and proud of is that during my time at ARM, when we were looking at the pandemic response, we were able to work with folding at home, work with semiconductor and software manufacturers to be able to kind of build, pass out the Linux code so that folding at home could run on smartphones as well as Raspberry Pis. And in doing so, these massively small but distributed computing created one of the world's most powerful supercomputers that helped actually deduce the structure of the spike protein so that we could accelerate the testing of the vaccines. So I think that has a lot of advantages if we really take the idea of scale and flip it onto itself. A lot of this comes from essentially, participatory involvement. How can we build capacity into communities so that some of these ideas, some of these kind of ways of twisting around what we are used to thinking, but then seeing the opportunity in can arise. And I think I'd like to kind of, bring that into a question, because we're in an event full of makers and people who are interested in designing solutions. So what are some of the bridges between participatory involvement and capacity building? And maybe I can come to Dr. Renuka and Kevin, because you both work in this space, really driving community participation or making frameworks that communities can participate.
Thank you, B. That's very right question at this right point, and especially reflecting back to the points raised by Andrew and Violet, I would like to say what Andrew said, that we need agency over technology, and also technology needs to be appropriate. So appropriateness is also very important. It should be, again, he mentioned about openness, reparable, circular, and also it should be like Violet mentioned, scalability, replicability, and so on. And I believe that if the technology is not designed by the proactiveness or involvement of a community, it is not going to work the way we want it. It will not be accessible, it will not be inclusive, as Kevin also already mentioned it. So to have it as a local capacity, we will have to involve local people. We will have to also build into how these, like the example which Violet mentioned, that it is very important about distributive technology, and it works very well in normal state. But how that technology can be implemented or used in the disaster management, because we have tested the technology, it is working there, and how we can immediately use that technology to for disaster management, for the benefit of the community. Those things can only come if a community is involved. And while if they are involved, it will automatically build their capacity to know what the technology is for, how that they can build that knowledge, and it will also be repairable because they have made that tool. So I think this goes hand in hand. And also, when you build a community, it is so contagious that if, just like WhatsApp and Facebook has worked very well, Uber has worked very well, Airbnb has worked very well. So these are the examples that how technology can be scalable and contagious. You know, like, are you using WhatsApp? That's the first question anyone would ask when you meet anyone nowadays. So this is what we want the technology to do. So I will stop here and I allow Kevin to expand it on more. Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot. I think I can only agree the importance of working with the communities on the ground, because they have also the knowledge and the knowledge of the urban context, which can be very specific and which can inform basically innovation and tech solutions. I think what is really important is that everyone involved understands the benefit of opening up these innovation processes, because new perspectives bring better solutions, like more brains make better solutions. I think we can all agree on that. And there are several mechanisms which can be used. I mean, approaches of collective intelligence or crowdsourcing or sense making, or just co-design and co-creation of solutions by engaging with the community. But I wanted to focus on a little bit of another aspect, which we have seen in our work, is basically building the capacity of cities and officials and of makers, and actually to understand each other better. And I mean, when we talk about the public official, we've seen that very often they need support in improving their skills in problem definition. And I think that's also partially due because there's not enough community engagement. But I mean, defining the problem is crucial in order to find suitable solution. And I think doing this also helps them to better understand how they can tap into local maker spaces, like how they could use maybe local solutions. And this is also linked to some policy and law regulations. But I think, and on the other hand, of course, working with makers and make them understand the functioning of the public sector, their processes, their timelines, there are sometimes difficult guidelines and laws and regulations they need to follow. I think if both parts understand better, bottom up and top down, if there's a better understanding of how the processes works, I think then we can also bridge the gaps between what is needed to find solutions and technical innovation approaches for addressing certain issues. And
sorry.
Maybe just one last sentence, and Renuka touched upon that. I think working with the communities, and I think makers have a big role to play there, there's an important multiplier effect. So creating skills around certain solutions creates other skills. And we have seen that, and it expands the horizon and the understanding of people who get involved. Just to mention a small example, like working with drones in communities. Of course, it was working with them together, understanding how drones work and so on, but actually created a lot of interest into filming, mapping, photography, GIS, satellite uses of imagery, and so on. So it created kind of a ripple effect. And this is really important to create really local ecosystems around innovation and technology.
Well, staying with that, I think I'm going to add, we've just had a couple of questions come through on the chat, and I think that would be really interesting to address this. So when we're building bridges between participatory involvement and community capacity building, where can somebody go to find and learn about the problems communities can be having so that they could get support or support the community by designing something? So perhaps if we take the example of global sustainable futures, how would somebody who's interested today help some of the communities that may have problems, or how do they find out about what the problems are of the communities involved in the network?
Thank you, Bijal. I think what happens that since I have started this network, I get every day several problems thrown to me, and I use a bit of democratic process that I throw back to the community where it applies, and ask them that who will be able to come forward and solve this, or at least start a process of solving this. I think that is the best way to invite innovation without compromising our inclusivity and accessibility. And I use plenty of different modes also. I think that is also very important, to use plenty of different modes, and we should know how to approach or to be accessible, approachable to people. And so broaden our vision, broaden our reach, will only help us to bring the community to address one problem or any problem and bring them together. Also, there is one very important thing, that should be no limitation in whoever wants to join that community to solve the problem, because everywhere where we have set some sort of standards. If you have this degree, you have this job. If you have this language, you are able to communicate, or something like that. And at GSFN, I'm really proud that we also have people who are a shoemaker on the roads, like repair shoe on their road, and we have them also on our GSFN. So it is something like we have to really have the degree
They might have
of
ideas,
tolerance, inclusivity, and be ready to accept those facts of this society. Thank you.
Absolutely. So with some of that, we've got a question that's come in. Would you be willing to support senior design project implementing LoRa for disaster recovery and relief? And this is from Ryan, who is a faculty member at USI. And I think this can apply to multiple panelists here. I think, I'll let you answer sort of where he could look for support, or and also I think this is similarly, I'd like to extend this opportunity to computing applications.
I would like to jump in and quickly answer it. So Ryan, thank you so much for the question. So I think the answer is yes, absolutely. And what we have is, on the one hand, we have robust industry grade products, which might not be totally open source, but we do have like the open source module of them. So it's like the open source version of the development boards and modules are the reference design for more robust industry grade of devices that can be deployed in the field. So we are open for discussion. Feel free to reach out, and then we are happy to dive a little bit deeper, no matter in LoRa or edge computing, and we can see how we might be able to work together, co-design some solutions together.
Fantastic.
I would add that one of the things that Violet and I have spoken about in the past is how can LoRa help at search and rescue? So there are particular applications where LoRa could be incredibly helpful in finding people buried under rubble. Some of the work that I did with my previous organization, we were making search and rescue equipment in Syria using the kind of materials you find at a truck stop. But you've got to find the people to be able to use that equipment, and there could be applications for LoRa in that area.
Fantastic. So I think if you are interested in discussing any of your projects, any of your needs, please do also follow up this discussion on the Discord channel, because we can keep that discussion alive, and we can also go in further depth around some of the areas we're discussing today. So I think we are next looking into some of the ways in which some of these projects that you mentioned, Andrew, yourself, some of the applications. I'd like to dive into some of the examples around where we can see how resiliency through technology is applied to urban contexts. So I know, Violet, you've been really involved, particularly with the support of the Hackster community as well in some. So perhaps you can kick us off, and if anyone else wants to bring further examples, please do chime in.
So I think one project I would want to mention is we had this contest called IoT into the Wild last year with Hackster. So it's an open call for people to join and then participate in addressing some of the solutions, like some of the issues in the 17 SDGs, and like to contribute to the 17 SDGs, and then we select some of them like climate change, etc. So we have like provide some of the free hardwares and then invite people to submit their solutions. So this is one thing that is about like how we cooperate with the partners in the community to look at the issues and then work on some solutions together. But I would really want to share a project that is happening, that happened in July in Bhutan. So it resonates with many of the topics that we mentioned earlier. So it's a project that really has like local farmers, local researchers, as well as like expertise in the Fab Lab community who know how to operate the machine in the design, and also with people from different background in design, in like me from the sensor company. And then we work together, like we discuss together and look at the solution instead of like jumping in and say, hey, this is a solution that I want to provide to you. But we want to talk to them and say, what is the problem? And then how do we think that we might be able to come up with a solution that use some of the local materials, use the Fab Labs to create some of the tools that can be replicable in other continents, in other cities, and also how we might be able to work on this solution that is inspiring other people to build on this solution so that it can be better, iterated for the next version, and continue to share and growth together.
Fantastic.
A comment on Bhutan, if I may. Bhutan is an interesting case study in resiliency. They are trying to modernize, but not globalize. It's a tiny country in the Himalayas, Himalayan kingdom, 800,000 people, and they're trying to modernize, but not globalize. And they're using the maker movement and Fab Labs and platforms like Hackster to do that. And, you know, it's a really interesting case study in self-sufficiency and resiliency.
And hopefully more people can find out about this as a resource after the session. So please do look up that. I think we have a very short time left before we have to call the end of this session, but we could not have a session on technology resiliency and how widely it can be applied to SDGs in urban contexts without mentioning the fact that the UN has defined a roadmap for digital cooperation, which includes characteristics and specifications that bring digital public goods, which are foundationally need to be open source, open access, open, I believe it's open data and open AI now. So any comments on sort of, if anyone wants to develop with the intent to support their solution as a digital public good, what should they be, you know, where should they be looking? What should they be keeping in mind? Where do they go?
Maybe I quickly jump in and I keep it very short since we run out of time. So yes, there's this Digital Public Goods Alliance, which has a digital public, a DPG registry. And it's basically a database which contains a multitude of digital public goods solutions which have been verified and certified by an expert panel, technical expert panel. And these solutions follow certain guidelines and baselines to make sure that they're really open sourced, that they respect privacy aspects, that they contribute to the SDGs, and so on and so forth. So there are 9 different indicators which they need to fulfill in order to receive the certification. And I think as we are running out of time, I just invite everyone to have a look at this large registry of DPGs. It's fascinating. It's worldwide, solutions from across the planet, across various different areas of engagement. Actually, the Digital Public Goods Alliance is a multi-stakeholder UN-endorsed initiative. And it's really, the purpose is to create a global ecosystem for digital public goods. And there's also, on the website, you will see there's a mechanism to nominate and to participate and to make your own solution basically a public good. And you can work together with this technical committee to make sure. And as Andrew mentioned, one of the risks or one of the shortcomings very often is documentation. So I invite everyone to really focus on that. Andrew.
Indeed, documentation and contracts, ownership, shared ownership. What does that look like? So I think you do have experts here that can support you with this, or the organization. So please do reach out, get to know them as part of the wider Hackster community. But I want to thank all my panelists today for a really brilliant discussion on how do we drive technology resiliency in urban contexts. I hope you found the discussion helpful. We didn't get around to answering some of your questions. Please do keep them live on Discord, and we will be able to continue the discussion there. I hope you have a very good the rest of day 2 for the Hackster Impact Summit.